This is meteorologist Dr. Bill Williams for FM Talk 1065.
FM Talk 1065, the Gulf Coast Weather Authority. Welcome to Beyond the Blockchain with Scott Tyndall, a discussion of blockchain technology, cryptocurrency, and why it matters to you.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Scott Tyndall. Thanks for joining us here on Wednesday night at 1065 FM Talk. And you can also follow us online at beyondtheblockchainshow.com or on Twitter as well. And, we'd love to have your calls tonight as well if you're interested. Always fun to chat with you. The number is 251-343-0106. Once again, that's 251-343-0106. So if you have specific questions or if there's something you want to talk about, tonight would be a good night to do that. Also tonight, Philip, I think we got a pretty good show, man. I had a chance this earlier today to visit with some friends I met a while ago, and they're based out of Portugal. So we went ahead and pre-recorded the interview today because it's the middle of the night in Portugal. So later on today in the show, we will have the show's first ever international interview, pre-recorded, but mostly like live. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be really interesting. It's Danielle and Max are the guys from Hotspotty, and they have started to build a basically software as a service system for the decentralized wireless industry, which is a lot of what we talk about all the time.
Yep.
So it'll be good. It kind of is coming full circle from, some of the interviews and people we've talked to, in previous weeks. What we also are going to do today is talk a little bit about how this Web3 growth is really going to start to transform. Last week Johnny told us a lot about Google and their involvement, and then and we talked about how Amazon and Walmart and everyone else can get involved as well. But today we'll talk a little bit more about what it looks like inside of maybe a community system. So if people are familiar with the website Reddit, it's reddit.com. It is one of the most popular websites in the world, but what it's done is it's created a lot of really unique niche communities. And Reddit is doing a very good job on exposing people to Web3 without them actually knowing that they're interacting with Web3. So they don't necessarily use like the term NFT. It would be a collectible, right? Or they don't use the term wallet. It's an account. It's not a token. It's they're doing a good job of moving us in that direction, and that's something we'll get to talk about later as well. Also in the world today, we see that the price of Bitcoin continues to be up and down. Here's what I know for sure, Philip. Tomorrow, the price of Bitcoin might go up and it might go down, but it's not going to stay the same. And I guess the point there is I don't think anybody really knows right now, right? Everything, the world economy is in such a fragile place that I think anyone who's out there telling you they know what is going to happen is probably a charlatan, or they've just got some really unique information that, the rest of us don't have. But
prophetic insight.
Yeah, right. That's right. Also in the world of crypto, we are starting to see some of the backlash from the celebrity endorsements. I saw a headline today that said, if you would have listened to Matt Damon at the Super Bowl last year, your results in crypto, wouldn't be that great. And here we go. Let me, I'm going to pull this article for you. All right, so basically they're saying, this ad is turning one, and it was the whole idea. Do you remember this commercial with Matt Damon during the Super Bowl? It was like, be a part of crypto. The future is now, or it's like very over the top theatrical experience.
Very Matt Damon-esque.
Very Matt Damon-esque. Yeah, so here's what it says here. This is from Variety.com. It was an article earlier today. And it says, just a few short months ago, Matt Damon exhorted us to fiercely buy into cryptocurrencies. In a slick CGI ad for Crypto.com, hyping the tagline, "Fortune favors the brave." And it says, now with crypto in a free fall and cratering to new lows, which we love to talk about, the Oscar-winning star is getting mercilessly dragged again for his gig as the face of Crypto.com. So here is basically the breakdown, right? So the Twitter experts have gone out there and done the breakdown for us. And it says here that if you would have bought $1,000 worth of Bitcoin on the day of Matt Damon's Fortune Favors the Brave commercial, when it debuted, it would be worth $375 now. Just a swift little,
Which Bitcoin?
63% loss. The Bitcoin, right? and so then it keeps on to tell us about all the people who have been brave and changed the world. Now, I think what's interesting about this is anyone who's making a snap judgment 1 year into this is not paying attention, right? Like, I don't think that if you're talking about fortune favoring the brave, you're talking about 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. So I think for me, this is just kind of like low-hanging fruit where, they can just beat up on Matt Damon for this one commercial. But I think anybody paying attention, zoom out on this thing and, 10 years they're going to be embarrassed about, making articles like this. But, hey, it's technically true today. And, crypto is down since, those big Super Bowl commercials. Now, we also have headlines out there talking about what they're calling CBDC, Philip. This is central bank digital currency. And this is where we start to get into the bridge and the real world of where Web3, which is supposed to be open and open source and allowing, remember, we've talked about us taking control of our data, and with a CBDC, it's kind of the opposite of that now, right? It's the whole idea that the central bank
They're taking control of
also, has control over that. And so, that is an interesting way of, I guess we should expect that anytime somebody sees an opportunity for innovation, they're going to want to be a part of that. And, technology is what it is, good, bad, or indifferent. We like to talk about on the show that the technology doesn't have moral values, right? It just is what it is. Now, we also talk a little bit today about, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk more about play-to-earn games. And then we're going to talk more about Hotspotty. And we'll have the interview with those guys coming up in a bit, too. So if you'll stick around with us, when we come back from the break, we're going to have a little more fun talking about Web3 and blockchain technology here on Beyond the Blockchain. Hey, folks, welcome back to Beyond the Blockchain. I'm your host, Scott Tyndall. And tonight we're talking a lot about Web3, blockchain technology, the future, what it means to us, and why it matters. So earlier tonight we were talking about a variety of new things that are happening in crypto right now, as well as the Matt Damon commercial, which is, funny to beat him up over. But another really interesting thing before we get into the Hotspotty interview, it was coming up a little bit later, is there's this article today about Apple tightening up its rules on crypto and NFTs in the App Store. And this is why this matters to us. We talk about that is because most of us, or a great large percentage of us, do have iPhones. And the way we access information and apps is through the App Store. Well, Apple controls the rules on the App Store. So if you want to play in Apple Sandbox, you gotta play their game, and you got to play by their rules. Well, typically, Apple charges about 30% on the in-app purchases that happen inside of their ecosystem. And that's a lot of money, right? And I understand that you would want to get your hands on that if you're Apple, to get your hands on the crypto portion of this as well. But I think there's going to be some pushback. In fact, we're going to go out there here to an article from CNBC.com, which, they know a little bit about technology. But it says that today Apple clarified its rules on cryptocurrencies and non-fungible tokens, NFTs. We've talked about these, laying out what the apps are and what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do with these technologies. So on the crypto exchanges, Apple is now saying in their App Store rules that the apps, they can facilitate transactions or transmissions of cryptocurrency on an approved exchange. But the app can only be offered in countries or regions where it has licensing and permission to operate a crypto exchange. So we go from this idea that crypto is decentralized, that it's permissionless. And now Apple is saying we're no longer saying it's permissionless. In fact, we're saying we control the permissions. I think that what they may find is they may put themselves in a box. We've talked previously about Solana starting their own phone and the Solana ecosystem and the phone that can be built on, Helium or Pollen or some of these decentralized wireless communication networks. And so if they start to go down that road, you could see an entire divergence of people who want to pursue a decentralized, permissionless communication system rather than what Apple's trying to do, which is, control the marketplace. And I understand where they're coming from, but it may not be as easy as they think. So the article goes on to say that the apps cannot use their own mechanisms to unlock content or functionality, meaning basically your NFT can't provide additional value without also paying more to Apple. And it says Apple has clarified the rules on NFTs, which can be a digital representation of a real-life asset, such as artwork, and are usually purchased using crypto, right? So that's what we're talking about NFTs. We're not talking necessarily about in-game purchase, but we're talking everything from provenance to, of art to college football tickets. Now, this is a little more detailed article, but it serves continuing to read through it. But it goes on to say that Apple's guidelines are going to say that the apps have to use in-app purchases to sell your NFTs and any of the services related to them, such as minting, listing, and transferring the tokens. And I think what they're saying there is that every time they touch their hands on it, they're going to take another 30% along the way. It says apps can also allow users to browse NFT collections owned by others so long as the apps do not include buttons, external links, or other calls to action that direct customers to purchasing mechanisms other than in-app purchase. So if you take all of that together, what you will hear is Apple will let you be a part of what they're doing, but only if they get 30% of what they get. And that is quite an interesting take.
Welcome back to Beyond the Blockchain.
We're going to go to break
with
here,
Scott Tyndall.
and when we do,
right,
we're going to come back and we are
the
going to
show.
talk
This
more
is Beyond
interviews.
The Blockchain. I'm your host, Scott Tyndall, and I'm very excited tonight to have on a couple of new friends. I've got Max and Danielle here from Hotspotty, and if you've been listening to the show, you know that we've talked a lot about kind of decentralized wireless, and these are the guys at the center of it all. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
This is our first.
Yeah,
this is our first international interview on the show. You guys are you in Portugal today? Is that right?
Yeah, we're here in Portugal. Not so sunny as usually is. Getting ready for the Solana breakpoint next week.
Excellent. Yeah, I always have to check with you on where you are. I know your home base is Portugal, but depending on the day, you could be anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, we've been traveling a lot the past year, and I guess we continue to do so until maybe mid of next year. I mean, God knows, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, God knows is the right answer. So tell our listeners a little bit about Hotspotty and kind of how you got started, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So my name is Daniel. I am originally from Brazil, but I've been living in Portugal for, I think, 4.5 years. It was summer 2020. Actually, that's when Max brought the idea that there was this project called Helium that was going to move it was finally exporting from the US to outside of the US, the world. This little project that people can deploy these IoT hotspots to build LoRa coverage. LoRa stands for long range wireless. And we got super interested right away. That was like during mid-COVID times, right? So we spend most of our time. I have a background in electrical engineering, so I was super interested about the matter. Spent all of my day on the Helium Discord channel, learning, trying to teach people as much as I could about how to build their own hotspots. At the time, there was, I think, around 4,000 hotspots, mainly in the US. And I remember we got super hooked into this project. And that's how basically we got started with DY, nowadays decentralized wireless, right? Back at the time, this term didn't exist yet. Everybody was just focused on building this LoRa coverage. Yeah, I mean, I can bring a little bit more fun stories about how we got started, but I can let Max talk a little bit as well.
Yeah, that's a good start. How about it, Max?
Yeah, exactly. So, Daniel pretty much covered the start. Me and Daniel were not friends at the time, actually. We had a third friend in common that actually I was playing paddle with together, which is a sport pretty popular here in Portugal. And I discovered this article about this new network that allows pretty much anyone to build out this network collectively. And it was the first application of crypto that I really understood could bring value in the real world, other than funny tokens. And we started discussing it, and then our common friend brought Daniel on the table because he had a lot of background doing this stuff already, but not in the crypto world. And then we started experimenting with it. We ordered one of them. We started testing it out in the field. We could actually connect into this network. It's like a Wi-Fi hotspot, but then with miles and miles of coverage all over the city. So it was pretty novel to us that this actually existed, right? Like a telecom for us, it's kind of a black box before that. But at the time, we were discovering how these things actually work and how you can put it into practice. We were really excited about this. And then, we started building out this network in our hometown in Lisbon.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, it was super cool. Yeah. I mean, I remember because I wouldn't say addicted, but I was so interested in Helium that I was one of the first people to get this Swarm key. Swarm key is like this little key that allows you to build a hotspot and add it to the blockchain. At the point that I was one of the first one, if you compare it to, I think between France, Spain, Italy, Germany, the first one was in my kitchen. I don't remember exactly the month. We can go check in the blockchain, which was the exact date. And it was really interesting because imagine there was only one hotspot in Lisbon. I had this little sensor, like this little mapper. I was just walking around my neighborhood trying to see how far I could go into a lose coverage on this device. So that was pretty magic times, I think.
Yeah, that was
very different from now.
That was the very beginning. And it's changed a lot since then. We don't have to make our own hotspots and sensors now, but the system allows for you to if you want to. You can make your own sensors. I know Joey Hiller's always out there, pushing that from the Helium Foundation. Which is that's the thing that's so neat is every time we come back on the show, there's more use cases to talk about, right? So every week something new is coming out and a new way to use Helium or some of the other DY projects. So our listeners have a pretty good overview of kind of the different projects. We've had folks from some of the different companies come on. Tell us more about the solution that Hotspotty is providing for people inside these communities.
Yeah, I think I can give a little bit of background exactly why we built Hotspotty. So we got super excited about Helium that we decided to build the whole Lisbon city with coverage. So we bought total around 60 hotspots in the city. It was very interesting because it was COVID times. So we're kind of dodging the police because technically we're not allowed to be outside of the streets sometimes. So we're just okay, let's just find ways that we can just get to the next rooftop and do the proper install for Helium. So that was a very interesting time. Everybody was stuck at home being bored and we're just building the Helium network. So that was a very magic time for us. every person that we did the installs in, basically everybody, our friends and family, etc. We told them, okay, we're gonna give you a percentage of the rewards every month. Let's say, for example, I install in your friend's house, and then I give them whatever that hotspot generates, 50%. At the end of the month, when you have to calculate how much each person was gonna get paid, we have a problem in our hands. How are we going to calculate this? And that's when the first version of Hotspotty was born. It was actually called hotspotmanager.xyz. It was like a very not pretty name.
But it's very to the point.
But it was like yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. Like, okay, what does this thing do? Okay, manage hotspots. Okay, that's what it is. That was like the first iteration, and that's all it did. It just it was a very simple way to calculate commission reports. But of course, first iteration took, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours to do the payment every month. But still came from like, spend a whole day doing the calculation before. So like 2 hours was already some progress, right?
That's progress. But then,
yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. Comparing to what we have now, that's just, 30 seconds, we can do everything. So it's progress. And that was the first version of the website. It was very different from what we have today. But then that's when Max came along. Helium was implementing some different HIPs with like Helium improvement proposals to force people to spread the network more. There was like the reward scale, transmit scale calculations. And that's when Max came along on the project. I think you can talk a little bit more, Max. Max is a really good, very talented, like an analytical engineer, like front end. I call it front end wizard because he made a lot of the cool things that you see nowadays on Hotspotty. But I'll let him take the word of it.
Yeah, sure. So essentially we deployed this network in our city, and we were pretty much like the only ones doing it at the time because we had the first mover advantage. Also, we had no idea that this network would actually become something meaningful or become that large, right? Like back in the day, it was still a very niche project. But then over time, we saw more and more people deploying hotspots in our area, and essentially we realized that actually, how do you optimize the network? Because if you look at a traditional telecom business, they basically do all of the planning in one division. You have one division of people. The only job they have is to figure out where they need to place new towers, new cell towers and whatnot. And it's all centrally planned. Whereas in this case, it's completely different. It's thousands of people all over the world that have no idea what their neighbor is doing. Like, they have just no idea. All they do is they just place it wherever they have access to, right? But is it really good for the network? Maybe, maybe not. To some extent, it's good to have some redundancy, some saturation in areas, because it's still a network deployed by individuals that are not really companies, right? They don't have an SLA. They might move to another place. They might, like the cleaning lady might pull out the electricity cable for whatever reason and not put it back in. So in the end, for the network to be actually useful, you need some sort of redundancy. But then how do you actually regulate how much redundancy there will be? Well, that's actually done by underlying logic in the tokenomics of, in that case, the Helium network, which are actually quite complex to grasp. And I like to dive in to those complexities, and we try to basically optimize regardless of all of the things we could not control, which is all of the other people deploying in our same area, like geographical area. I try to understand, like, okay, how can we still make a good network? And the outcome was that actually it's very difficult, and the only way to do it is by working together with all the other people. But then how do you do that if you don't know who they are? Because it's a completely decentralized network. At most, you know what wallet they have, but you cannot really know the identity of these people. So then we basically started creating visualizations of the data, showing a map where you could see, like, okay, this is where all the hotspots are in the network. This is like what hotspot belongs to which wallet. And then we basically started providing tools so that you could start communicating with these other hotspots. So let's say that you're in an area and there's like too many hotspots, but actually you just want to work together, but you can't because you have no means to communicate. with these other people that are like-minded and that are building the same network, but you have no idea who they are. So we basically published the next version of Hotspotty to allow people to say, hey, this is my wallet. I own this wallet because I signed this transaction or I sent a donation to Hotspotty. And in return, I gain access to all of the messages that people are sending to my hotspot, or essentially to my wallet. And so we became this basically collaboration platform on top of a hotspot management platform. So on the one hand, we allow people to understand what's going on with their hotspot, how to plan the next phase if they're going about it at scale, or if they just have one, it's all good. You can see all of the data on the blockchain through our platform. But at the same time, you can meet like-minded people. You can start pretty much like optimizing the network by collaborating with other people in your area that previously you had no way to actually communicate with. And then through that collaboration, or for that collaboration, we also give you a bunch of tools that to like stimulate and visualize and suggest strategies to actually do that. So we would say like, okay, in this very specific area, there's too many hotspots. However, if you keep expanding in that direction of town and you put some more hotspots there and you collaborate together, then actually it's going to help the network. And that's basically what we did, the second iteration of Hotspotty.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point you made. And first of all, I'm thankful that we have really smart people like you two fellas figuring all this out because I'm not equipped to do that. I've got enough self-awareness to know what I'm good at and what I'm not. And the engineering side is not what I was built for. But thankfully, people like you are out in the world. And I tell people if we were all just alike, we wouldn't need each other. Right. So clearly we do. And the solution that you've provided is extremely helpful when you're managing your hotspots. To your point earlier, communicating with other hotspot owners to improve the coverage of the network is just such an essential and central piece of working together on this collaboration as we try and build a quality network, right? The appropriate redundancy, as you mentioned, without oversaturation.
And also to continue on that, because the other point that you brought up, which is that everyone has their own set, like skill set, right? Or their own interest, if you will. But right now, it is what it is, but actually how DY is evolving is towards like actual cellular data networks, which you can use to connect to the internet with your phone. And of course, the equipment for that is orders of magnitude more complex. And it's a lot more important to actually calibrate it right, to position it right, to plan it right. But it's the same concept, the same decentralized network where anyone can build it. I might live in an excellent location with really bad coverage, but I have the perfect place to install hardware on my roof to help the network. But maybe I'm completely not technical. Like how are we going to actually provide useful coverage in that sense if I install it completely wrong? So that's basically what we attempt to do with Hotspotty is we want to help the community to reach a certain quality of service to basically make the end user experience useful and great. But how to do that is through a combination of things. On the one hand, there's the tooling, pretty much self-service, where we'll work together with manufacturers to provide you with the right data at the right time and help you kind of figure it out. But there's a certain like level of technical skills required to still interpret that. But then on the other hand, maybe there's some other people in your same area that have a day job in a telecom company, right? So it's literally their job and their passion to be technical and to actually calibrate devices or whatever it might be or install. And we basically want to bring these people together and say, okay, I have an excellent location. I don't know how to install this thing, but maybe I can work together with someone in my neighborhood who is actually very skilled and wants to earn something extra in the evening. And they can swing by and he can install it for me and I will share a part of the revenue for like 2 months, or I will give him a certain amount. And in the end result is that the network just gets better and everyone can kind of also express or like basically do what they like to do.
That's kind of the fun part about this whole Web3 venture, isn't it? We get to do the parts we like and pay attention to what we want. And when the market's in a state like it is now, we get to learn and build together to all be in better positions.
Welcome back to Beyond the Blockchain.
All right,
with
folks,
Scott
that was the first half of our interview with Hotspotty and Max and Danielle, and I hope you'll listen to the rest of it.
Welcome back to Beyond the Blockchain with Scott Tyndall.
Now, we've talked a little bit about helium already, but Hotspotty is interested in expanding beyond just helium as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, so when we started back in 2020, I mean, even last year, right? Nobody was talking about any other project. Up to this year, beginning of the year is when the term DY started to taking shape. It stands for like decentralized wireless, where other projects, and not only initially was on IoT, which is dominated by helium, but then there are other things that Max was saying, the 5G or CBRS, which is cell phone coverage. And there's helium, there's pollen, there's XNet. There's actually multiple players coming to this network, coming to this market, sorry. And it's a very interesting problem to solve, right? Because the coverage is a problem mainly in the US. The US is so vast that it's really hard to have good coverage everywhere. And I believe that's the only way to actually build the network is through collaboration and decentralization. And this is something that the DY ecosystem itself is helping solve. At the same time that there are multiple companies doing that, such as Helium, Pollen, XNet, etc. They're doing a very good job, and it's a very hard challenge, a very hard problem to solve, which is the technicalities of this network, right? But one thing that's missing is the organization layer, and that's what we try to do with Hotspotty, right? We believe that we working with multiple projects, we can actually help the whole ecosystem grow and thrive. And that's something that actually we just realized that at the beginning of the year. Until, let's say, January, we were very focused on IoT, solving all the problems. And then around April, when we traveled to the US, actually when we met you, Scott, in person, around that time, is that what we realized is that Hotspot is much more than just like a website that manage helium hotspots. It can be the organization layer that helps the whole DY ecosystem. Doesn't matter necessarily which protocol or blockchain project we are working with. Either Helium, Pollen, even other projects that are not necessarily for decentralized wireless, we can help as well. It's still a little bit alone, like far away on the roadmap, but we could add other projects such as Demo or HiveMapper, etc. But we're super excited about this new phase.
I'm super excited too, because I think you're on the money. I think this layer of connectivity is needed in all of these projects. Simplifying the connectivity amongst the community members has got to be on everyone's agenda. Right now it's kind of a jumbled mess when we're jumping around from Discord to Twitter to Telegram and WhatsApp and everywhere in between, and everybody's trying to keep it going, keep it organized, and each project is kind of more heavy in one place or the other. But having Hotspotty as this central conduit, I think, can be really important, as you said, beyond DY. But really with any of these decentralized projects where people want to work together and collaborate.
Yeah. I mean, we're working very hard to reshape our backend software to really become like a framework to add multiple blockchain projects and really help the community. Because we know that one person that is deploying Helium IoT, Helium Mobile, can also and probably is also deploying Pollen devices or other projects. So imagine if you can manage all your devices in the same platform and also collaborating with other people around you, around your city. This can be super helpful, right? We're spending a lot of time talking to big deployers as well. We're actually flying to the West Coast beginning of November after Solana Breakpoint to spend some time with those big deployers and really understand their pain points, things that we can help, that we can solve the problems through software. And I'm really excited about that.
That's good news. I'd like to hear that y'all are on the front side of that, helping us solve the problems before, because these larger deployers are they're going to come across these troubles faster than than the lone wolves and the solo players. So it's really good to hear. Now let's talk a little bit about Solana and the helium transition over there. I know you've spent some time in that ecosystem. Kind of let our listeners know what the helium move to Solana is going to mean for maybe the growth of the network.
Yeah. So Helium, when they started their project, there wasn't a lot of different blockchain projects or layer ones that could build on top of it. For example, there was Ethereum. Ethereum was very new, but it was extremely expensive to build something on top of Ethereum. Imagine if every time you need to send a Helium transaction, you rely, what's the word in English? You depend on the gas fees or the transfer fees from Ethereum. If the Ethereum network is congested, you're going to pay a lot for that. So basically that made it impossible to build Helium on top of Ethereum, so that the Helium company decided to build their own blockchain, which has been growing. It's been working. There's a lot of problems along the way, but it's been working fine overall. But the issue is that it's way too big right now. With almost 1 million hotspots, just the database for the blockchain is insanely big, that they needed to find a way to transition to a different protocol to do it. And they decided to go with Solana. There are multiple projects that could be used for the same thing. Ethereum was definitely not one of them. Maybe Ethereum layer 2, something like Polygon. But I think they decided to go with Solana, which is a blockchain that I like it. There, of course, nothing's perfect. There's still a lot of work to be done on the blockchain side of things. But it will allow the network to grow much faster and much more frictionless. And what's going to happen if you have a Helium wallet, you're going to have to transition to a Solana wallet. And each hotspot is going to go from being a device on that wallet to become an NFT into your Solana wallet. It's
Interesting.
On our end, it's going to have a lot of work to do as well, so that for the transition. Mm-hmm. But after you rip off the band-aid of the transition, there are a lot of cool things that's going to be the transition to Solana is going to allow. For example, you're going to start. Actually, that's some things that we at Hotspotty are looking into, is how we can integrate DeFi into DY. Like decentralized finance. You can do maybe smart contracts for automatic payments. Maybe some kind of lending system through some smart contracts. The possibilities with Solana are much, much bigger than what Helium has right now on their layer 1. There are projects like Pollen and HiveMapper. They're also being built on Solana. So that means that a lot of the tooling that's built for those projects can also be used potentially for Helium.
Yeah, that's a really great point for our listeners. When is there an estimated timeline on when the move to Solana is going to happen? If there is, I may have missed it.
I believe, they don't have a right date set, but I think it's going to be around Q1 next year.
Yeah, it would make sense to give them a little time to wrap things up over this year. Well, I think a lot of our listeners are going to find this really fascinating, guys, because we do have people that lack coverage in certain areas, and we also have people that are learning more about crypto and the blockchain and DY all along the way. People ask us when is crypto going to matter to me? I'm like, well, every day, and then we get to hop on this show and give them good examples. I appreciate the fact that y'all have taken the time to visit with me. I know it's after hours there in Portugal. You are our first international interview here on Beyond the Blockchain, but I don't think that it's going to be the last, and it certainly won't be the last time that we'd love to have you all back on any chance we can. It's just a pleasure getting a chance to visit with you. I enjoyed meeting you when we were in Austin and just following along on the journey. If people want to follow along on the journey with you, how can they follow you online?
Our website is hotspotty.net, also twitter.com/hotspotty. You can also join our Discord channel. It's hotspotty.net/Discord. And then you can find any link there. And if any of you come over to Lisbon, let us know.
We'll take you up on that offer. I'm going to try and get it on my calendar for sure to come and see you. I need to get over that direction anyway. and it would just be a pleasure getting to visit with you all over there. What else have we left off that we want to make sure that we tell our listeners tonight?
Not really, actually. I think it was great catching up with you, and I think it's like we're now in the fundraising mode, so which basically means we're loading up the possibilities to expand the team and build a lot more, because this DY network or DY like ecosystem is clearly rapidly growing, and so does the need for the tooling, so that like everyday people can actually meaningfully get something out of it. There's a lot of work to be done, but there's also a lot of complexity, and our job, or what we really want to focus on, is like removing the complexity of these things. You don't need to be a telecom engineer in order to be able to contribute to building this network and secure maybe a passive income stream, which is in the end what everyone can truly benefit from. Better connectivity is an extra income stream. Those are things that everyone would like to have.
I think that's a wonderful way to end it. Better connectivity, and you get paid for it, right? Rather than the other way around. So the future with Web3, the future of blockchain, the future of DY, and maybe even DeFi is in the hands of you genius gentlemen at Hotspotty, and I'm grateful that you're out there doing this work, making everybody else's life easier, building this connectivity, and helping us communicate with one another. It's been a pleasure, and I hope to catch up with you again soon, guys.
Likewise. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Scott. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back to Beyond the Blockchain with Scott Tyndall.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Scott Tyndall, and we love being with you every Wednesday night here on 106.5 FM Talk. We do have time maybe to squeeze in a question before we get done. If you want to call in 251-343-0106 or text in. We do have a text that came in earlier, and it's from Rob. And Rob says, that was a whole lot of information. Can you wrap that up for me? Yes, Rob, we can. So to wrap that up, here's what you really need to understand about Hotspotty. So Danielle and Max have built this communication system that allows us to manage any of our crypto hotspots inside of this, currently the Helium ecosystem, soon the Pollen ecosystem, and then hopefully throughout more of DY, like what we call decentralized wireless. So if you're trying to manage your Helium hotspot and you need to communicate with someone else that owns a Helium hotspot, hopefully they're a member of Hotspotty. They subscribe to the service. It's kind of like thinking about subscribing to Netflix, right? If you wanted to communicate with your neighbor, but you want to be anonymous, you want to know who's in control of that device, you can message them and you can work on your deployment together. The reason that matters is better deployments with appropriate coverage, appropriate redundant coverage, but without oversaturation provides the best results. It provides the best results for the network, but it also provides the best financial results for you in your rewards for building out the network. So when you're thinking about wrapping all this up with Danielle and Max and their big, giant engineering brains that we're so fortunate to learn from, I mean, these guys they're going to be the future of, Philip, they're going to be like an Elon Musk inside of this crypto ecosystem. I'm just telling you now, like, if you'd have met Elon 20 years ago, like, that's what these dudes are. Yeah. And that's how their brains operate. And yeah, so we get a chance to learn from them, soak it up. So what I tell people is, all right, these guys are building this ecosystem for us and allowing us to participate in it. And we don't have to know how to do the engineering to get that done. I don't have to know how to code or how to do any of these things. But what I do love about what Hotspotty is doing is they are more than just a technology company because they understand the way that humans interact with one another. They understand the way that we build culture and that we build things. And so that's really, I think, the unique kind of use case of what Hotspotty has going on. And, they also mentioned that, there's work out here on other networks. There's HiveMapper, which, we talked to Ariel, a few weeks ago from HiveMapper. They're the decentralized company that's taken on Google. that trying to take on Google Maps. Give us the ability to control our own data through mapping, control our own information, and be rewarded for our information. So, when you start putting together some of these companies, it could be like this little super ball of energy. I think one of my favorite parts of history, this is kind of an aside, but one of my favorite parts of history is the Renaissance. And in Florence, there was this amazing convergence of humans over the course of just like 150 years. And they could do anything. They were creating the most beautiful works of art we've ever seen. They were sculpting marble. They were building war machines. They were building bridges and everything in between. And at some point, we're going to have a new Renaissance. And I think it could come from this kind of Web3 idea, because you can bring a confluence of people from every different industry, and none of them are going to be crypto native. So it's beautiful because we're all non-crypto native, and you start putting that thing together. And I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see some really remarkable brains solving a lot of really big problems. And when people want to get down and they're like, we talked about this Matt Damon article earlier in the show, like that's funny to talk about today. But literally in 10 years, we're going to look at this and we're going to see some of the most amazing innovations that we could not have imagined come out of this, what, they consider a bear market. And that's going to be fun. And that's why I like the show. And that's why I like doing what we do. And that's why I like visiting with people like Max and Danielle, or the guys from Pollen Mobile or Hexagon, or Joey at the Helium Foundation and everywhere else. It's kind of fun. Thinking about the future, dreaming about the future, figuring out how we can put ourselves in better positions to take advantage of the things we learn and grow. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up here on Beyond the Blockchain. Thanks for joining us, and hope to, spend some time with you next Wednesday night.